Step one is probably clean up the shed. We'll spend the whole day looking for the next tool. This stuff here from making the last lure and fishing on the weekend.
You're right. The Magi, as you know, or wise men, wonderfully...
While you are struggling on the treadmill, there's more to imagine when you listen. Discover self.
That's what we're making. A 160mm shallow diver for jewfish.
Blacker than any black you thought it could be.
It's the usual deal. Templates are cut. Got to find some timber to stick them to. It's probably out of one of those two pieces. One of those, either or. I think we can make something out of that. Got that cut out, that rough shape. We'll get that sanded and tidied up. It's starting to look like a fish. I just went back off camera and I took a little more volume out of the front. I wanted it more even front to back, just that slimmer profile. I like how that front edge, that brutal sharp edge is looking. Another reason that I've kept it at about 160mm and I've slimmed it down is you're going to be casting this thing in and around the rocks, maybe 100 casts in a session. You don't want to be casting something big and heavy. Ooh, that's pretty close. That's a fun one. It's actually square. I made a bit of an effort to keep that even front and back. It's about 44mm wide the whole way through. So that's your midpoint right there. I don't think I'm as happy with the top template as I thought I was. I don't like how aggressive it is from the nose to the wide point. I think I want it not as wide at the wide point, and then more volume carried through to the tail. So I think I might redraw that. Up. Good girl. What are you doing? Hey, you want to go for a walk? Come on. It's now the day after. The day after? It's now the day after the next day. It's 2 days later. It's easy to procrastinate when you get stuck on a top shape or at some other point. I spent the last couple of days walking the dog, working, and I repotted a bunch of fruit trees in the yard. But I think I know how I want this top shape to go, roughly. If we stick this on, just temporarily, it'll give us something to work around and sketch around. This might take a while. It's definitely something you want to get right. This one's going to get paint anyway, so any pen marks or whatever that are still there don't matter so much. I think I wanted about 15mm at the front, 25 at the wide point, and maybe 13-ish at the tail. I think I'm at a point we can cut that out. This one's going to have a through wire instead of twisted wire, hook points and toe points. And this is the easiest time while your bait's square, get it in the vise and start that cut down the middle. For smaller baits, for brim and bass, it's okay to use a twist wire for hook and toe points that's glued in and resined in, but for bigger baits, it'll need something like that. These little pull saws are so good for doing accurate cuts and straight cuts. I only want to go to about there for now. And on the tail, somewhere there. Just finished up on the sander. I don't know if you noticed, but I was having a bit of a crisis. I took way more volume off the top at the front. I was tempted to cut it in half, put it in the bin. We'll stick with it. It's Saturday, so I actually have time to make stuff. I cut a slot last night for that through wire to go through. We just need to bend that up.
Next thing I knew was
parallel bars, and they had a lot of trouble. You know, but if you got, I just had a good picture, man. If anything, I could picture was 6 months after, never seen.
You can name that voice for an extra point.
Except driving by on the street. I was working on 40, which is about 18 feet long in this truck I drove around. And King and Bobby Kennedy got killed.
Not so different.
I think that's it.
Right now, I guess, if you're being put in your hotel room to write your song.
Exactly.
I quite like that rounded, oversized loop style.
He told me, but he always had
Hopefully it helps the hook swing and catch a fish.
die from nothing, I suppose.
Pencil, new blade in the knife, bit of 180 grit, and we'll take that through wire in case we need to reference it. After getting a bit loosey-goosey on the sand the other day, it's looking pretty good. Going to touch a little bit of the shape up with some 180, and then we'll start to carve it. I really just want to take the square edge off the top, a little bit more off the bottom to get that roll, but I actually want to keep the flat edge in the shape. We'll see how we go.
Nothing I really experienced before that. So people who know it's the end of the thought.
Hello. Hot dog. I just realised we haven't done anything about weight either. So we'll need the lip slot and then at least 2 points of lead. It needs to be one that keeps it upright, both that way and that way. Another weight in the tail for casting. We'll get that marked up. I think the lip slot's going to be the hardest. I think 2 mils enough. These rubber things are magic. Getting there. I think we're going to risk it and put a 10 mil at the back. There's about 17 make or break points in making a bait. Well, that was terrifying. I've got that through wire tacked in there. I'm pretty happy with how it's sitting, both front and back. Bit smoky. Little minor emergency. It tried to run into the lip slot. I'd use a pocket knife to shut it off. Shut the dam. Sorry to the 35 people that are going to watch this. This is taking a while.
Misery can create conflict.
That's the dry fit of the lip. The idea is that any of that lip that sits outside the body line is going to catch water and make the action. And the angle of it will dictate how deep it dives. I think I've got that lip at about 70 degrees. The goal for this one is to dive to about 1 metre so I can cast it in and around rocks. It's more of a shuffle than a dive. Got that all sanded up with some 240. I took the lip back out. I'm going to make it watertight with some polyurethane. Now we get to have a little fun with it and put some colours on this thing. I don't know what colours we're going to use, but I'm going to start with white, and then whatever we do use will pop after that. I don't think colours matter that much. It's more the profile and the action of a lure. That's a good starting point. Now we're going to find some colours. I'm thinking just some basic colours. Definitely red, either black or grey. Maybe a colour shift over the top. This might be a bad decision, but I think I'm going to do it. Fluorescent pink, the whole thing. It'll have black eyes. We'll start with that, we'll see what happens. I like it so far, given that it's not on the bait. It's very pink. A little bit of black goes a long way.
Secrets. Like, I can't write my memoirs. So he puts out a book called Public Works, A Dangerous Trade.
Eyeballs are in. I also gave it a light coating of black just to give it some texture across the whole thing. Better get a couple of clear coats on this before I muck it up. I'm going to do 2 coats of clear between the base colours and any patterns we put on it. Hopefully it makes those pop a little bit. Might go a bit Jackson Pollock on it. Still haven't built that box. Trying to choose one last colour to go on top, one last speckled colour. I can't choose between yellow, fluorescent green or red. I don't think it's red. I think it's going to be fluorescent green. Doing a little sample on the bench. I think that's what it's going to be.
I like to think Toronto is the raccoon capital of the world, and we're strangely proud of that distinction. Do we have more raccoons than, say, Chicago or Vancouver?
I finished up the paint and put the lip in. Time for a test bath. Test tank. The swim's nice and upright. Just got some 2.0 trebles in different gauges. We take those and give it a proper swim test tomorrow. Standing at the back of the ute, so that means we're testing a new lure. Got that 160mm Jew lure. Get that tied on, give it a few casts. I would have preferred to be fishing it off the rocks or a breakwall, but there's wind and waves at the moment. This is more of a test swim. I think for its first swim I'll just give it a uni knot at the front. Let's see if we can't catch a Christmas ham. First cast. Oh, it's got a good action. You can feel it vibrating and thumping away. Doesn't look like it's going too deep. Oh, it's perfect. It's sitting at about 1 metre. It's exactly what we wanted. Yeah, I reckon that's about 1 metre. I'm pretty stoked with that. It's cast into a tree. Might have a few more casts here just to make sure nothing comes loose or make sure it swims consistently. Jewfish would be the goal. Jack I'd be stoked with his bycatch. It's been fun to make such a big lure. I think the next one's going to be smaller and more detailed. Maybe for bass while it's still summer. See you in about 2 weeks.